Welcome home, neighbors.
Welcome home, neighbors.
Hello, neighbors.
We're listening from
Arizona,
Florida,
Maryland,
New York,
New Jersey,
Indianapolis,
California, Utah,
Michigan.
Iowa, Massachusetts, Georgia, Canada,
Our home resort is
Animal Kingdom, Polynesia,
Bay Lake Town,
Old Key West,
Riviera,
Boardwalk,
Alani Resort,
Hilton Head,
Boulder Ridge, Copper Creek, Grand Floridian,
Saratoga Springs,
Beach Club,
and Wilderness Lodge.
and you're listening to
and you're listening
You're listening to My
DVC
Points.
Welcome home, everybody, to the Community Hall show for My DVC Points. I am not Chad Pennycuff. I am one half of the DCLDuo, Brian Flock. So I am here to talk tonight about our maiden voyage on Disney Cruise Line, and I've got some fabulous friends to join me. First, I have to welcome the better half of the DCLDuo, Sam. Welcome, Sam, to the show.
Hello! We are, as you might have guessed, in different rooms in our house. This is actually how we record our show when we're doing our podcast. And so we felt like it was really appropriate to continue that method of being in separate rooms and just talking to each other on video. Because isn't that how everybody talks to their spouse?
It's the way our marriage survives, I feel like. So that and cruising, right? And
That's right.
We're joined by one other fabulous guest who's on the maiden voyage with us. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hello. Does that mean that if we're following this trend and Sam's the better half of the DCL duo, does that make me the better half of the junior duo?
Yes.
Sorry, Willie. Yep.
Willie and Rebecca, who've been on Community Hall many times before, have earned the moniker DCL Duo Junior. And so, yes, this is the better half of the DCL Duo Junior. So before we dive into the show tonight, I have to stop and pause and thank the show's sponsor, which is DVC Rental Store. They're sponsoring season 8 of My DVC Points, and they will help you rent your points if you can't use them. And so if for some reason you can't make it to your home resort fabulous DVC stay, head over to the DVC Rental Store. They'll help you rent the points for cash, which you can use to pay for dues. You can use to pay for another vacation, dare I say a cruise line vacation. It's a great way to rent your points and then spend them on a Disney cruise.
Of course.
Yeah, but you can get the money back to use on whatever you would like to have. It's just some extra cash in your pocket. So head over to the DVC Rental Store to rent your points out. We've used them before, love them, makes the process so easy. So huge shout out to them for sponsoring the Community Hall shows this year. So thanks, DVC Rental Store.
Yeah.
All right. We got
another really important announcement we have to make before we really dive into the show. We have to wish somebody a very special happy birthday. We're a couple days late, but there was no live show on Friday. So Chad Pennycuff, happy birthday from Community Hall.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, if folks want to post in the comments to send Chad some well wishes for his birthday, I know he'd appreciate it. So he's taking the night off tonight to celebrate. So thanks, Chad, for letting us host, and happy birthday to you. So with that, we got a jam-packed show. We got to use every second here wisely, because I will tell you, we covered the maiden voyage on our podcast. It is a 3-part series that is each an hour and 10 minutes long, and we don't have that kind of time. So we are going to condense this sucker down to talk to you about the maiden voyage, and also get into the DVC cruise that followed, because we were on both. So we had 8 nights on board. I want to start first impressions. This is the Disney Wishes maiden voyage. It was our first opportunity to get a real in-person look at her. Rebecca, what did you think of the Disney Wish as you pulled up to the cruise terminal to start your fabulous vacation?
Pulling up to the terminal for any Disney cruise is the most surreal part of the vacation. And if you're a part of, or if you were in our phones and you could see our little shared album that we have, there's I don't know how many pictures of Willie sitting there pointing at the ship in the background as we could continue to inch closer and closer and closer. This was unlike any other cruise that I had ever been on before. And so it was, we had no idea what we were going to expect. And in true Disney fashion, from the moment that you're stepping on to something that's special, you are showered with gifts and joy and magic and happiness. And they handed us these magical wands that lit up the Grand Hall chandelier, and there's a stage now, and the lighting and the paint choice colors and just everything that they chose to use it was more mystical, it was more magical than the Art Deco of all the other cruise ships that are in the fleet. It's everything that you ever think you know about cruises just completely wiped out just by stepping on board this ship. And it was funny because, like you said, this is our first time getting to actually see it in person. We've seen pictures, we watched videos, you watch all the trailers that Disney Cruise Line and the Disney company was putting out, but none of it actually held any ground than standing in the middle of it and basking in the glow and the amazing feel and environment that you were in. So it was really, I think, a very special experience, and I'm honored to have been one of the people that got to experience it for sure.
Yeah, I thought the Grand Hall was very elegant. I thought it was an amazing space. Sam, what did you think about the new Grand Hall? And I should put in a plug too. We've got some 360-degree video out on YouTube on our channel, the DCLDuo channel, that will allow you to kind of browse around the Grand Hall if you'd like. We did a 360-degree walkthrough video of the pool deck and decks 3, 4, and 5. So if you want to get a sense of what the layout of the ship looks like, you can walk through with us and pan and tilt your camera around to your heart's desire. But Sam, what did you think about the Grand Hall when you stepped on board, and the ship in general?
I loved it. I mean, I think elegant is the right word. Romantic is another word I might use to describe. It's much more massive. It's much more grand, as the name suggests, than the atrium. It's very much more grand than the atriums and the Wonder and the Magic, and also quite a bit more grand, I would say, than on the Fantasy and the Dream. It's a much larger space with a stage and a balcony kind of stage above it. And then this beautiful, magical, mystical chandelier. I don't know how else to describe it. It's better than the chandeliers on the other ships, although those are elegant and beautiful as well. Yeah, it's just this incredible space. And coming into that Grand Hall, having your family name announced, it was unlike, I think, any other ship because of that atmosphere. It's just bigger and better. Let me put it that way. That's the best way to describe it. Bigger and better. Now, the ship from the outside does not, I know it is a little bit bigger, does not appear to look very different from a distance compared to the Dream and the Fantasy. In fact, if you saw her from, a distance, I'm not sure that you could tell her apart from the Dream and the Fantasy.
She's got an extra exterior bump out, which would give her away, and the Aquamouse superstructure up on the top deck, which we'll talk about, is pretty massive. So I think you could, with a decent look, figure it out. But I agree, it's same paint color, same elegant cruise liner feel that Disney's tried to instill in all the ships. So gorgeous ship. You will not mistake her for some other brand of ship. The closest that it gets is the Cunard Line ships, which are classic ocean liners. So I think that's the only thing that I missed from the Grand Hall. I'll just put this out there, and I don't know, as future cruises happen, they may change this. There was no clapping from the cast members. They announced your name and you walked in, and there was no line of cast members kind of clapping to welcome you on board, which I always thought that was kind of the special part. So maybe that will happen. Frederica has commented here about kids on the member charter, which is reminding me that we should preface some of our comments here by saying that both the maiden voyage and the DVC charter cruise were unique sailings for many reasons, but one of which was that they had a ton of adults and not a lot of kids. And so that did, in some places, overwhelm some of the adult spaces. It did color some of our impressions. So there were only about, I think Sam heard, maybe between 100 and 150 kids between the ages of 3 and 12, which is the Oceaneer age group, or the Oceaneer Club age group. So, and we had
on the maiden voyage,
there were more.
There were maybe like 300. I think I heard floated about for the DVC charter.
And do you remember the capacity number, Sam? I'm trying to remember what
they were really similar. So they were about 2,700 passengers. I think we ended up with about 2,600 something passengers on the maiden, and about the same on the DVC charter, after some folks were turned away after testing. So, so about pretty similar number of people, but certainly you could tell the difference in the amount of adults versus kids on the two cruises. And then we heard that the kind of those percentages returned back more to the normal, sort of the normal percentages. So like 1,000, kids when you've got 3,000 passengers, that sort of a thing.
Yeah, and the other unique thing is there were about 400 back-to-back sailors as between the maiden and the DVC charter cruise. That is a huge number of back-to-back sailors.
Mhm.
I would expect actually a lot of the Wish voyages going forward, not to have that many, but lots of folks taking back-to-back on the Wish to try and squeeze out 7-day itineraries on the Wish. So I expect to see some back-to-back cruisers on there as well. But let's shift over and talk about just the layout of the ship as we got to explore spaces. I will just preface this by saying, I think Willie on our podcast mentioned that it was like stepping on Disney Cruise Line version 2.0. And I agree with that. If you're going on the Wish and you are a seasoned cruiser with Disney Cruise Line, throw out everything you know about where things are on the ship, go in with a fresh mind and get prepared to read lots of maps and look for directions, because it is laid out
Absolutely.
completely differently than all of the other ships.
Except the pools are on the top deck.
Sure. No place else they can really put them unless we're harkening back to the Titanic days and they were inside in marble. But yes, pools are on the top deck, but that is it. Everything else is kind of moved around. The one thing that is especially new is that there is no real adult district on the Disney Wish in the way that they have on the other cruise ships. There is an adult pool area, but other than that, bars are spread out. The adult dining is in one area, like the adult restaurants, exclusive adult restaurants we can talk about in a second, are in one area with a bar, but all the other bars are spread throughout the ship, and the adult entertainment is held in a new venue, which is a 2-story theater called Luna. So let me just stop there and say, Sam, what were your impressions of some of the spaces on the ship and how it's laid out?
Yeah, so I think the biggest difference that was apparent to me is the 2 elevator banks. So instead of having 3 elevator banks, meaning a forward, midship, and aft, they're calling them forward and aft. But I will honestly tell you that where the elevators are located are really forward and midship. So if you're staying in a cabin that's all the way aft, you have a bit of a walk to the elevators that you didn't used to have. Or at least it's a little bit longer than what you used to have. I don't think the elevator situation is a huge negative, because I understand we got other spaces out of it because, they're able to sort of use that space, but also because they had more elevators in those elevator banks. So there are more elevators in the forward and more in the aft than there were before. In fact, there are more elevators on board than there are on any of the other ships, but they're just concentrated in 2 locations instead of concentrated in 3 locations. Same goes for stairs. So you don't have a forward, mid, and aft stairs anymore. You really just have forward and aft. But again, it's really more like a forward and a mid. So that's the biggest difference. And there are a lot of people complaining about it. I get it, especially if you're somebody with limited mobility and you're staying in the aft. It's going to be a much longer walk before you can get to an elevator bank. But if you're traveling from, across the ship anyway, well, maybe you're doing it on your floor instead, on your cabin floor, instead of doing it on the floor in which you're going to. So that's kind of going to be I'd say the biggest change in layout. The other one, I think, as Brian mentioned, they're not being a district or Europa kind of feel. But there's a bunch of differences. I mean, the kids clubs are in different places than they are on the other ships. Coffee shop, Cove Cafe's in a different place. Yeah, there's a lot of big changes. Like Brian said, and like Willie said, it's Disney Cruise Line 2.0. So you really kind of have to throw out what you know and look at look near the elevator banks or look on your deck plan on the Disney Cruise Line Navigator app. The one exception is Marceline Market is basically in the same place that Cabanas was in. So that's easy. If you want to go to the buffet, you know where you're going. Becca, what did you notice that was really different?
I was probably, to piggyback off of what you're saying, Sam, to kind of give some more insight as to, the quote issues that were there with the elevators. I think where we had our room in our floor per se, our deck, excuse me, not the location across like the length of the ship, really did help a lot too. So we were on deck 9, and that is about 2 to 5 stories up from places and then 2 to 5 stories down to places. So we didn't seem to miss a lot of the things because it was the same. If we couldn't take the elevators because they were too busy, the stairs for us were not too hectic. So if you're staying on deck 2 or deck 3 and you need to go up 10 plus decks to get to the pool deck, that may be a bigger issue than if you were staying somewhere in the middle of the deck floors or the higher levels. I know you get too higher in concierge and like nobody can do that, but like you guys can do that, but like we can't do that. Okay. Regular people can't do that. Okay. Regular people can't stay in the Royal Disney suite. So just okay. But the other
Fair enough. Listen, we were not in concierge on this cruise. We have most of our cruises have been with the regular people, but we do enjoy, we do enjoy a concierge stay. So
of course. I will say that the other probably major difference is going to be the pool layout on deck 11, because the decks or the pools are on 11, 12, 13, it seems, rather than having one massive big kids pool on the main deck, you have 6 smaller multi-depth waterfall type pools. So there is in front of the funnel vision, which it is still called the funnel vision, there is the Mickey Mouse pool, which is, I would say, maybe 3 feet, 3.5 feet deep probably, and there's a 1 or maybe 6-inch step on top of that for people to sit in. That is right in front of funnel vision. And then on the back across the deck, you've got the 5 other Fab 6. I know they're Fab 5, but every main character has its own pool. So Minnie has a pool, Goofy, Donald, Daisy, who am I missing? Pluto. He also has a pool. So all of those main characters have their own pool on this deck. And there are some that are, 5 feet plus deep, but they're very small considering what you're used to, again, on the other 4 ships. And that's actually the deepest ones are going to be the 2 highest pools. And then the other 2, I think it's the Pluto and the Daisy, if I'm correct.
Yep.
They have a waterfall cascading on the back of them. So you can kind of like sit with your back hitting, getting hit by water. But then it's maybe like 6 inches or less of water that you're sitting in to just kind of like wade around in. I would say it gets to like your ankles, maybe just above your ankles, right before your calf, to actually get there. So it was very different than having a 4.5 foot pool across the entire area. Instead, you have 6 much smaller spread out pools across the entire deck. So
yeah. We have a great question from Gina asking, how did the kids pools work for us and how did our son like it? So Brian and I haven't Brian and I have an 8-year-old. We couldn't get him out. I mean, he loved it. And I will say we liked it. We went in the pools. We went in particular into the Goofy and the Donald pools, which are the deeper ones that are kind of up a little bit. I think it's technically deck 12. But they all look at the funnel vision as well. So we had a great time just kind of hanging out in those pools. We swam a little bit with Nathan, a little bit just, ourselves. It was really quite nice. Much better than the experience on the other ships with Kid Soup. So this is not a Kid Soup experience. You can, even if you're adults only, you can hang out at the family pools and you will not feel like you're in Kid Soup.
Yeah. So I want to highlight a couple things too, to go back to the ship layout discussion just really fast. One is, so Frederica has a great comment here about the layouts changing from deck to deck. That's very true. Some decks you've got outside hallways, some decks you've got a middle hallway, some decks crisscross and you get both. And so you really, you have to set aside everything you know about a Disney ship and see, go in with a clear head about it. The other thing I'll say about the layout is that there are new spaces that were opened up by the layout. We can talk maybe a little bit later about the rainforest room, but there's lots of new spaces that have been rearranged here and lots of what I would call more intimate spaces. So the cruise line very deliberately, I think, set this up so that larger spaces were cut into smaller pieces so that you could have kind of a more intimate gathering on a big ship, but not feel like you're in sort of a cavernous space. One of the most unique spaces on board right now is the Luna Theater that I alluded to earlier, which is a 2-story theater. It's kind of a cross between the D Lounge and what might be the Tube on the Fantasy. They do bingo there. They were doing Match Your Mate in that space. It's a 2-story theater that has a balcony space around it. It's a really interesting venue. I'll be really interested to see what they do with it going forward. It has a massive screen in it, which is really interesting. And there are bars right off of it so that you can go get a drink and bring it in to the theater. So
yeah. It's also an open space. So like you can, if you're walking by, you can actually hear and see what's going on inside. It's very different than, let's say, Azure on the Wonder or D Lounge on, the Fantasy or it's just a very different space. Yeah.
On the pool deck side of things, because Frederica's got a comment here. One mom expressed concern she couldn't see splash pad and kid pool at the same time. Yeah,
you can't on the other ships either.
Yeah, well, I think the splash pad area on the Wonder there's a kids pool and a splash pad area in the same space, right? But
fair.
on the Dream and the Fantasy, I think it's a similar issue. There is a splash pad area that is separate from all of the other pools. There's also a quieter pool area that's separate away from the main pools for, I thought that was a good add for kids who have like maybe just some sensory, like they don't want to be in the midst of all of these like movies and noise and all this sort of stuff. I thought that the pool deck area being tiered really helped spread the crowds out. It also enabled people to basically be swimming while deck parties were going on, which is very unusual for Disney Cruise Line. One weird thing that I discovered as I was reading some posts today is that, and maybe Sam saw this, I didn't see a family hot tub anywhere on the pool deck. There is a hot tub for the adults up on the adult pool area. There are 2 hot tubs in the rainforest room, and there are 2 hot tubs on the concierge sun deck, but I do not believe that there is a family hot tub on the Wish that I found.
And I'm gonna be honest, the adult hot tub did not even scream adult hot tub or adult area. Like, yes, it was kind of on the way to Cove Cafe, but for the most part, it was just kind of sitting off to the side of the pool deck before you had even gotten into the adult area. And the only way that you could tell it was a hot tub was because it had said like spa on the side of it. Like, it wasn't where on the Fantasy you kind of, it's, very sectioned off, still very much in the adult area and overlooking the water as well. It's like up on the glass so you can kind of see over the boat. Whereas this one, we never even knew what it was until we had actually taken a closer look at it.
Yeah, and the adult pool area is actually, as I see Frederica saying, I didn't even find the infinity pool at all. So the adult pool area is actually on deck 13, I believe it is, all the way aft. And you can only get to it from one side of the ship because the other side of the ship is blocked by the Aquamouse.
Right, it's the starboard side.
You have to walk down the starboard side of the ship on deck 13, and you will enter into the adult area. There is a Cove bar back there. Around the corner from it is a much smaller version of the Cove Cafe with, spoiler alert, no pastry cases, no food or snacks of any kind in that adult area, just drinks and coffee. And then there is a small infinity pool, not very big, certainly not the size of the kind of adult spaces that they have on, say, the Wonder. And then there are 2 smaller kind of seating areas next to it that have these seats you can sit in, and water will just kind of run down your back, basically. And so
they have quite a few of those. In the adult area, there's just a little bit of that, but there's multiple spaces I noticed on the family pool deck. There's Trixie's Falls, which is by the splash pad. And then there were also the Daisy and Pluto, I'll call them wading pools, that Rebecca was talking about, all that have these sort of waterfall features where you can sit someplace kind of on a ledge where you're only partially in the water, but you can have water kind of cooling you off. That was also prevalent on the forward part of the ship, right by where the horn is. So be warned, if the horn's about to go off, you're going to get an earful. But right at the front of the ship, there's a Chip and Dale's pool. And that's the pool that Brian was talking about that tends to be, I would say, very much quieter. You can't see funnel vision or anything like that. You can just see off the front of the ship there. But that also had that waterfall feature. So it's a nice feature they're adding to a lot of the pools, a lot of the shallow pools, I should say. Yeah.
Well, while we're on the pool deck, we gotta move this along, or we'll be here all night. So
I know.
While we're on the pool deck, though, I do want to hit on the Aquamouse because the Aquamouse is the new water ride on board Disney Cruise Line. Sam, you had a chance to try it twice. Do you kind of want to quickly walk people through what it was like and your impressions of the Aquamouse?
Yeah, so I got on it more than twice, but I got to go on both storylines. So there's two different storylines. One I'll just say is a mermaid storyline, one is a Yeti storyline. So you've got one that's a winter and one that's a summer theme. You get into a 2-person tube. You can go yourself or you can go 2 people, and you are kind of sliding up or being pulled up this ramp. It's like a conveyor belt. So you're not in the water yet when you're first on this ride. And then you're going through, I'll call it a tunnel, but the tunnel has screens on both sides. And then there's some water splashing on you, depending upon what's going on in the video. And then when you get to the end of that sort of conveyor belt, you are in kind of dark water tube and you get into the water slide portion of it. It is a shorter ride than the aqueduct because of that ramp. I would say the water slide portion is shorter, but is very fast, especially if you have 2 adults. When Brian and I went on it, we went really, really fast. And it's really a great water slide ride. I'm not sure I agree with the classification of it as a water coaster, as Disney is calling it. I would say it's a really cool ride and it's a really fun water slide. Yeah.
It's a very short water slide.
Yes.
I mean, like the ramp up is very long and the water slide aspect of it is very short. I think that the water slide aspect of it is more thrilling than what you'll get on the aqueduct. And the biggest and best improvement that they made here was that they have a continuous conveyor belt for the rafts. So when you come down the other side, your raft gets pushed up onto a conveyor belt, you get out, the raft continues forward, the next group gets in. So they don't have to fuddle around with moving rafts up to the top of the funnel for the slide. So I think that was a great addition. All right,
Yeah.
we gotta talk about let's talk about bars on board, because there are a lot of them and they're getting
Oh my God.
lot of hype. We've got Hyperspace Lounge, we've got the Rose, we've got Nightingales. All of them have specialty
Bayou.
cocktails, Instagrammable cocktails out there. There's just a ton of spaces for adults spread throughout the ship. On the layout side of things, I think it's notable that 2 of the bars are right off the Grand Hall, which is actually 3 of the bars are right off the Grand Hall, with the Bayou, Nightingales, and Hyperspace Lounge, which is very different than the other ships. But Rebecca, what did you think of the bar offerings on board? And I want to put a pin in for just a second Hyperspace Lounge, because that deserves its own mention. But the other bar spaces on board, what did you think?
You seem to be forgetting about the most important bar that we found on the Wish, and that's going to be
Wheezy's
Freezy. So it's not technically a bar. It's like a ice smoothie milkshake, like ice.
Yep.
What are those?
Slushies, snow cones,
slushies.
slushies. Yeah,
Place.
it's really
And
the
it's
slushy
not
bar.
it's not technically adult, but they do have alcohol that you can add to their drinks back there.
It's like Frozone.
And the name of it is just too good to be true. So Wheezy's Freezies, that's on the pool deck. But of all of the bars and adult only lounge places that were offered, we got to go see a lot of them. We really did enjoy it, and that is something very different from the way that Willie and I cruise. When we're by ourselves, we spend all of our time at the adult activities and the trivias that are offered on board, but we spend a lot more time and money drinking on the maiden voyage of the Wish.
Sorry, Rebecca. Sorry.
I know. We found out that we are both martini people. We had never before had anything really other than wine and maybe a mixed drink with, a liqueur or whatever. And then come to find out that martinis are probably the best drink that we've ever had. And we can thank our other good friends, Tracy and Michael, for that one. And you should go check out the Maiden DCLDuo podcast that we did with them, because they're also included in that and they're amazing people. Anyway, so the best bar lounge hands down has to be the Rose. Even if you are a Star Wars fan and you do go see Hyperspace, I really do think that the Rose is just up there in terms of elegance and theming and the use of the space. So it is actually the entryway or like holding space for people that are going to go into the adult dining area. So if you're going to go to Palo either for brunch or dinner, or Enchante for brunch or dinner, that you have to walk through first in order to get there into those 2 restaurants. But at night, it really turns into its own thing. It basically becomes a lounge area. It almost feels like they have an open bar kind of vibe. Like it's like a reception, like a wedding reception. I don't know. There's no really way to describe it. It was beautiful. It was themed after Beauty and the Beast. So you walk down this hallway and in front of you is the rose inside the canister. And then up on the walls, you kind of have those glimpses of a tale as old as time and this beautiful story that's unfolding. So the rose was definitely top notch. And I actually really did enjoy the bayou, of course, for its theming and its the use of, it's very green and gold in New Orleans. It's packed to the brim 90% of the time. To me, it's kind of like La Piazza aboard the Fantasy. So that kind of piano pre-lounge area before you head into the adults actual sections, except there is no, lounge district area on the Wish. So it's just kind of sitting there on its own, but it has the same vibe of someone on a keyboard and someone, a cappella singing or whatever going on. But we'd actually spent more time there for breakfast. So they actually do coffees and accept your Cove Cafe tokens there. So you get the little punch card and they'll take them there as well.
And beignets.
And beignets. Yes. They spent all their time there for breakfast, getting coffee and beignets on a couple of the mornings. So those two were probably the lounges that stuck out to me the most.
Yeah, the bayou is, so one thing we should step back and say in terms of design of the ship is that it is themed to princesses. So a lot of the spaces on board are meant to theme to these princesses. So the bayou exists for Tiana, great spot for live music, which Disney Cruise Line fans have been asking for. They even had a full band in there a few nights. So a great spot for some live music. Nightingales is themed to Sweet Nightingale, and I'm trying to remember the princess. I think it's Cinderella.
Cinderella.
Cinderella. So it's themed to Cinderella. It is more like the champagne bar that some of the other ships have.
And it's also a piano bar. So most of, and Frederick is asking a question, please mention the deck. So most of what we're talking about right now is actually on deck 3. So Nightingales is on deck 3. Luna is on deck 3. The Bayou is on deck 3.
Actually, no. Luna is on deck 4 and 5.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, 4 and 5.
Keg and Compass is on deck 5, which is the sports bar on board. So much like the pubs that are on the other ships, and has a food menu, which we can talk about in a second as well. And Hyperspace Lounge is also on deck 3. The Rose is on deck 12. With the adult dining spaces. And so the Rose is kind of the upscale bar on board. It's kind of the retooling of Meridian, but it's much more useful, much more hopping than I think I've ever seen Meridian be. It's themed to Beauty and the Beast. So that's the princess that it's associated with. So altogether, that's, I think 5 specific bar spaces. I want to
and then you forget about Tritons is another space that's kind of used for karaoke or other kinds of family activities. I'll call it a lounge. It doesn't have its own bar, but it's like right next to Luna on deck 5. And so you can grab a drink from the bar at Luna and then hang out in Tritons right there. So yeah, there's quite a few. There's a lot more bar spaces, but all of them, except for maybe Luna, are smaller. So we have more spaces, but smaller, more intimate spaces is how I would describe them. On the maiden voyage, most of those spaces were packed every night, all night after dinner in particular. On the DVC charter, they were not nearly as packed, and I would expect them to kind of as the ship gets more of its normal passengers, which include a lot more kids than were on the maiden and the DVC charter, I would expect the venues to kind of have normal fullness, but not packed like they were on the maiden.
I want to pull up Frederica's comment. She said, what about Sword? And I do want to highlight, yes, there are a ton of coffee bars on board. So it is not just Cove Cafe as your spot to get specialty coffee. I think we mentioned the Bayou. There is the
Wishing Star Cafe and the Sword and the Stone, right?
Yeah, I think it's the Sword and the Shield, but I can't remember. But multiple spots for you to get your morning latte, including in Marceline Market, which we'll talk about in a second. They have added a coffee bar into the buffet area, which I think is a great addition for folks who want to go get their buffet breakfast, but also their specialty coffee. Also have a comment here from Disneyland Resort ambassadors who said, what kind of alcoholic drinks they have? The answer to that is whatever you want.
Everything.
Yeah, they have everything. I will actually comment and say that I think that the cruise line on the Wish has really upped their premium liquor stock on board. We noticed a lot of very high-end things on the back bar, lots of mixed drinks that incorporate those high-end drinks. So they're those high-end liquors. So they're serving everything on board, but need to shift us over to Hyperspace, because we haven't talked about it yet. It's a big space on board. We managed to do 2 reservations there currently. So Hyperspace Lounge is the Star Wars themed bar on board. Currently, it requires reservations. You can get up to 2 currently, 1 for a family reservation, because they do allow kids in the bar area up until I think it's 8 or 9 o'clock.
It's 9 o'clock.
And 1 adult only reservation per stateroom. They have incorporated the reservations into the Disney Cruise Line app. So if you're a Star Wars fan, once you get to port, you're attached to ship's Wi-Fi, you are going to be able to go on and make your reservations for Hyperspace Lounge. But Rebecca, I think you encapsulated my own thinking about the Hyperspace Lounge. It was a fun space, but what did you think about Hyperspace Lounge?
Yeah, I mean, it was fun to be there. It was nice to get to be in that environment. I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, but it's not so much you can obviously tell that it's Star Wars themed, but it's not like Chewbacca and R2-D2 are like walking around the place and you're like, completely bombarded with it. There is obviously I'm assuming this is like the Skyline Lounge on a bunch of the other ones where it has that same premise of the windows in the lounge changing different scenes throughout the time that you were there. We were only allowed to have 45 minutes in that space, and we timed it. In that 45 minutes, I think you go through 5 or 7 scenes, 5 to 7 scenes, depending on when you get there. It's extremely loud. I will say I don't think there was a spot. I mean, we sat at the same table, both reservations that we had, but it is a very small space. It is very intimate. Not a lot of places to kind of escape the loudness of it. But it rattles your table and it shakes the walls, and you do feel very immersed, like you're jumping into hyperspace. So I guess if that's, part of what you're looking for that experience, you can go ahead.
Yeah, we timed it. It was every 7 minutes you did a jump, right? So a hyperspace jump. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was okay. I think the drinks were very out there. They did have a regular like beer and wine. And you can obviously probably get any regular drink that you could get at any other bar. But as far as their signature cocktails, they had amaretto flavored ones and some that were orange and white chocolate. So they were kind of more, I don't want to say extreme, but they were just more out there drinks.
Mm-hmm.
But it was good to experience it. And I think that, if you are a person that likes bars and likes Star Wars or just likes, spaces like that, then you should definitely try it out.
Yeah, I don't think so. I will say this: Hyperspace Lounge for me did not live up to the hype. I think it did not go as far as an Oga's Cantina would with the fun theming. There was no like fun food. None of the cast members really had a fun backstory that they would tell us, so it felt like you were at a bar. It felt like you were at Skyline and it was just Star Wars themed. And so, right now there are long lines and lots of waits to get into that bar. I think that over time that will calm down significantly. I agree with Frederica's comment, the 90-minute wait for a reservation, not worth it. Although again, now you can get them
now you can do it through the app. Yeah.
But it's just the kids club space, which we have to talk about as well. The kids club
way
space
better.
For Star Wars was the space they needed to build for the adult bar, and they didn't do it. And so I don't think it will live up to the hype over time without some sort of retooling. And no, we did not get the $5,000 drink. If you want to see that, there's plenty of videos of people who did. That also apparently did not fully live up to the hype that it had around it. So, but we got to shift gears. We got to talk about, we got staterooms, food, shows, kids club. We got a ton of stuff to get through. So I'm sorry to keep moving us along, but we got to get through this stuff. So let's talk about, actually, we're going to go back to food for a second. Hold off on the staterooms. We got to talk about the restaurants on board. So 3 new main dining restaurants, a whole new pool deck area, quick service space. Marceline Market as the new buffet, and 2 new adult dining opportunities, or at least 1 new adult dining opportunity and 1 reimagining of an adult dining opportunity. But let's start with, actually, let me make 1 quick comment about food on board because it's gotten a lot of attention. So gone is a lot of the, what I'll call freebie food snack type items that you would have gotten at like a Cove Cafe, charcuterie plates, things like that are in the snack case. For that, you have to head to Keg and Compass, and there is a menu and there is a charge. And so they have a lot of your fan favorite adult snack type items, Bavarian pretzels, chicken wings, charcuterie boards, that they're
Although
serving.
charcuterie boards are at Marceline Market as well. You can get them.
But not around the evening time.
Correct.
The market is not open then. So you can go there, you can order them. They are, made fresh in the back and brought out. So we had several things from there. There is a fee, but we thought that it was good food. But not a lot of those snacks that you would have seen on the ships out in steam tables or other things like that for the adults. But we got to talk about quick service. Sam, quick service dining on the pool deck area, Mickey and Friends. How was it?
Oh my goodness. So this is a huge win for Disney Cruise Line. Really there's 2 main additions, and that's all you need to talk about. That's all. You don't need to worry about the hamburgers and hot dogs and the chicken fingers. Those are all the same. If you love those and you want life-changing chicken fingers, they're there. But there is a new spot. There is a barbecue spot that has ribs and brisket and chicken and macaroni and cheese and greens and what am I missing? Cornbread. I'm probably missing something else. Pulled pork. Fantastic pool deck food. You can get it pretty much all day until I think about 6 p.m. and then that shuts down. Obviously pizza's still open, but the barbecue shuts down. And the other thing that we have to mention is, let's just call it Chipotle at sea. I mean, it's called Donald's Cantina, but it's very similar to a Chipotle setup. You can get tacos, a burrito, or a rice bowl. It's a taco bar, exactly. So it's a fantastic addition. I will say, if you like your food a little bit spicier, you're going to need to add salsa, because all of the meats are not super seasoned, because obviously they're dealing with a range of palates. Some people who can't really handle spicy. So if you want spicy, you're going to have to get some of that spicy salsa to add. But they have a salsa bar, and they have a barbecue sauce bar for the barbecue. So it's awesome. These are 2 great additions to the pool deck food. Like I said, you're not missing anything because you still got the pizza, you still got the burgers and all that stuff. But these are just, sweet potato fries. I forgot that one.
And the pizza is, we've heard from repeatedly that the pizza is better on the other ships. I think it's about the same, but they are making the dough fresh. They are cooking it in a pizza oven. And lots of fun hacks now that come from the barbecue space and the taco space. So you can go get a bun from the hot dog hamburger area, bring it over, get your pulled pork sandwich. You can take your pulled pork over to the taco area and perhaps get a pulled pork burrito if that's really what you want to do. Yeah. So the good comment here from Frederica about the food allergy sensitivity handling. Why don't we talk about that both in the context of the quick service dining, Rebecca, but also let's start down the path of main dining here. So you have a gluten allergy. You got to experience the full effect of Disney's allergy-friendly menus. What did you think of the change over from order the night before to being given a menu at dining?
Yeah. Well, how many minutes do I have to talk about this? I really could talk about this forever. The cruise line and Disney World in general have always been the 2 places where I actually feel comfortable just eating, not needing to plan or eat before I go somewhere or things like that, because they always do an amazing job. But what is happening on the Wish needs to spread throughout the rest of the cruise line fleet. And I think that it's very easy to do that as well. So yes, on the other cruise line fleet ships, you have to pre-order your dinner, your breakfast, your lunch, and everything from the night before for the next day. But on the Wish, I was given a menu that everything on there was completely allergy friendly. So it could be made gluten free, like Frederica is saying, dairy free, soy free. If you had a multitude of allergies and you had a dairy and a gluten allergy, you would have been taken care of because all of it can be made that way. I mean, and there were things that literally I didn't even think would appear on a menu for someone with a gluten allergy, like brownies and cookies, and not the boxed ones that they get from the store just to have on the deck. These, I mean, I did have those too. If you've ever heard me talk about the snickerdoodle cookies, those are still there and they're still good. But I mean, I had hot, fresh brownies, and I haven't had those in months. I was supposed to have gnocchi, but they ran out, like, because it's so good, and then so many people are getting it. So it's just a very different experience that needs to, not a suggestion, like a very high push. This needs to happen on all of the other ships. Now, I will say I still did pre-order my breakfast because for the most part, we went to Marceline Market for breakfast time. And just because of cross-contamination being so high in buffet areas like that, I just pre-ordered my meals for that. But lunch was usually I was able to go and get it with no issues. And dinner was the same thing. So it was really amazing.
Awesome.
Well, Gina is telling us that we have to move this along, so I hate to keep pushing us forward, but I do just want to quickly let folks know about the main dining offerings that are on board the cruise line, and also just say tons of detail. If you want to head over to our podcast, again, we covered the Wish in 3 separate shows because there's so much to talk about with this ship. So you can head over and watch that or listen to that if you want more information. But in terms of main dining on board, just quickly, there are 3 new rotational dining restaurants. The first one is 1923, which is kind of like a royal court, royal palace on board, but with more of a elegant steakhouse kind of feel. It is divided into 2 separate restaurants, the Roy and the Walt side. They will tell you which restaurant you're in your Navigator app. There's no real difference in the layout, just different kinds of art and things on either side. Yes, Frederica, we have heard now that there is a trend on board. This was not on the Maiden or the DVC cruise that we saw, but folks are starting to dress up in 1920s garb for their evening in 1923.
Yeah.
And so that's a really fun trend that they're doing. No show in 1923, but the food is fantastic. I think everyone on this episode would agree that the food in 1923 was some of the best we've had. Everyone recommends the steak if you're a meat eater, and it is cooked perfectly. I haven't seen a Disney Cruise Line steak cooked that well in a long time.
Appetizer.
And then the next restaurant up in the rotation with a show is Arendelle, the Frozen themed restaurant, and it does have a large dining area that is, well, a compact dining area, I guess, but open dining area that faces a stage. And there is a show with Anna and Elsa and friends who make an appearance. Olaf is up there. They do come around to the tables, which was a nice touch. So the characters do circulate through the restaurant at intermissions and come by and say hello, and you can get kind of a table picture with them. So that's a fun thing. The show I thought was good. It will very much depend on your sight lines, how much enjoyment you get out of the show. And the food there, again, excellent. The food on the Wish has been some of the best that we have ever had. I see Frederica's comment that Arendelle show is too loud. I think there was a lot of loudness on the Wish, to be honest. And so, yeah, a lot of the spaces were just very loud. But yes, the Arendelle show was still a fun show. We had a fun time there and the food was excellent. Yep. The last restaurant on board, just to highlight for folks, is the Worlds of Marvel restaurant, which has an entire Ant-Man and the Wasp theme show with a little bit of audience table participation with your quantum core in the middle. I thought that the food there was good. It is not as themed as I think we had hoped it would be.
The food, you mean?
The food,
right.
Yes. The space is themed. The show is a lot of fun. And what's even better is that the show brings in a lot of the other Marvel characters, the newer Marvel characters, and also pokes a little bit of humor at the cruise line throughout the show. So it's nice to see them not just do some Marvel show, but they actually kind of integrated it with the cruise line and the ship. So fun shows all the way around. Speaking of shows, this is kind of our last topic we're going to be able to cover tonight is shows. We got to experience Seize the Adventure and the new Little Mermaid show. Sam did, and Rebecca did as well. And so just quickly want to get your thoughts on those 2 shows.
So I'll start and say Seize the Adventure is now, I think, the best variety show on all 5 of the ships. When I say variety show, I mean it's not a movie that they then put on the stage, right, and created a stage show out of. It is more of a variety show. So they have different numbers from different movies. And it is fantastic. It's only a half hour. It's a perfect welcome aboard show to get you in that Disney feeling. It was on for us on our first full day on the ship, but it's going to be on the first night, so on embarkation day for the 3 and 4 night cruises. It is fantastic. The other show, Little Mermaid, I thought was fantastic. It's getting some blowback, I think, on the internet and on Twitter. I thought it was a great show. I would not put it up there with Beauty and the Beast, but I would put it over Aladdin. That's how I'm gonna, and I'll leave it at that.
Rebecca, any thoughts on the show from you?
I'm with Sam. I think Seas the Adventure was great because we got to see Goofy as a main character, which is very different from any other shows on deck. And I haven't seen Aladdin, but I'm still gonna put I'm gonna put Little Mermaid under Beauty and the Beast and Rapunzel or Tangled on the Magic. So for me, out of the princess shows that I have seen, it's gonna be my third ranked. So
nice. And the one show we did not talk about is the new Pirate Deck Party, the Pirate Parlay. Which is an amazing retooling of the Pirate Deck Party show.
Super fun.
And the fireworks. And so lots of fun, lots of great music at the Pirate
really
Deck
loud.
Party. We don't tend to love the pirate night on board the ships, but this is a Pirate Deck Party I would actually enjoy going to. And the fireworks have been beefed up on board. So if you've got fireworks on your cruise, which all of them should one night, make sure to head up to that top deck. We recommend deck 12 starboard side to be able to sort of watch the show from above and then immediately turn to watch the fireworks, because there are huge structures for the Aquamouse in your way if you're down on the deck watching the party and then trying to watch the fireworks. But fabulous fireworks. They've added 2 points of entry for the fireworks to meet in the middle. So they're firing fireworks now, not just off the aft, but also off the mid. And it creates a nice full fireworks display and a much longer display. So great addition, the new Pirate Deck Party there. So with that, we are beyond time, and Gina's going to give me the hook here in a second. So we will wrap it up. Lots more we could talk about. We didn't even get into the kids clubs, which are amazing. All amazing. Yeah, we didn't get
elevated. Let me just say, elevated the theming and the interactive experiences in the kids clubs. I should say in the Oceaneers Club. So kids club for 3 to 12-year-olds is incredible. And I want to spend my time there.
And we spent a lot of our time at the Hero Zone too, and we didn't get to talk about that space.
The new Hero Zone, the new enclosed multi-purpose space for basketball. So there is so much to talk about here. I will just say one more time, if you want more, we've got more. Head over to our show and you can listen to 3 episodes all about the Wish. Actually, more than that right now. So, but with that, we're going to wrap up tonight's community hall. Thanks everyone out there for sticking with us, and happy sailing. See ya.
Happy sailing.